Today is May 16th, 2006. I am Sarah Locker. It is a pleasure to conduct this interview for the Dakota Memories Oral History Project in Linton, North Dakota. Can you please state your full name for the record?
Okay, I'm August Vetter. I'm 75 years old,
So when were you born and where?
and I was born in 1930, May 31st.
Did you ever hear any stories about your birth? About when you were born?
I was born out in the farm, that much I know.
What's the earliest memory that you remember?
I remember things from, I would say, 3, 4 years old. I remember real well when I used to sleep with my parents. It was such a good feeling when you could crawl in. It was so cold. And of course, at that time, they didn't have the stoves that they got today. And I remember that really well, sleeping between my parents, and I was about 3 years old, I would say.
Do you have any other early memories from around then that you remember?
I remember before I went to school real well also, helping my mother make, she used to make a lot of dough. They made a lot of dough stuff, and we'd play with the dough. That was our toys at that time.
Do you have any idea how she made that dough that you played with?
Well, she made a lot of cookies, a lot of breads, noodles, and then she also gave us those to play with. She gave us a little cover, and you made the same thing as your parents did. That was kind of fun.
Let's talk about your grandparents. Can you tell me about your grandparents on your dad's side of the family?
Okay, my grandpa lived with us until 1938. There was 13 of us, 13 kids. My mother, my dad, and 12 brothers and sisters, and my grandpa. And he died in the same place where in 1938 I was 8 years old, and we were standing around the bed. And I remember him like today when he died. He closed his eyes, and the women would start crying, and they said, now he's gone. I remember that like today, but I was 8 years old. But I remember stuff when he smoked a lot, and we'd go in there, and he put his smoke on his pants, and the smoke would stay there and would go up, roll up so slowly. Then us kids would breathe it in. We'd like that smoke. I remember that. And my mother didn't like it, but we thought it was pretty neat. He was a heavy, heavy smoker, my grandpa.
What was your grandfather's name?
John.
Can you explain what kind of a person he was? What was he like?
I never can remember. There was eight. I had 8 brothers. I never remember once that he ever scolded one of them. So he had to be awful, awful good because there was a lot of running around. There was 13 of us, and I never remember when he scolded us. I remember being outside one time when we played, and my brother and my cousin locked himself into the green bin, and it was so hot. We were playing hide and go see, so he went. We told him we can't get him out, and he ran down there. That I remember, and I was maybe only about 4 years old. And I think the guardian angel told us to tell him that and they were in the green bin. They couldn't get out, and it was so hot when they came out. They were just like
How did you get him out?
halfway stepped. They laid in front of the. We opened up the door. They couldn't get the door open from the inside. Opened up the door, and then they went out. It was a.
Did your grandfather ever tell you stories about Russia or coming over from Russia?
Not my grandpa Vetter didn't, but my mother was 9 when she came over, and she talked about a lot when she grew up over there. My mother did, from the Wangler side. My dad's side, they never talked about. They came over in 1888, and my grandpa, he didn't talk all that much. He didn't share much with us that part. I don't think they want to talk that much. I think they were kind of, I don't know. I got that feeling out that they didn't. I think they were so homesick they just didn't want to talk about it or what.
You think if they were given the chance to go back to Russia, they may have gone?
I don't think so because my great grandfather, they came over in 1888 and he brought my grandfather along. And my dad was born in 1899 in Hague, and they were there for 13 years, and then they had no water, and then they moved up where the homestead is now in 1900. And we celebrated in 1888 because it was 100 years old. We had like, I think, 1,300 people there. They came from Canada. There were two girls that my grandpa had sisters. They moved up there, and when one of them lost her husband. No. Anyway, she was married twice. So it was a big relationship, and they all came down to the Vetter farm in 1988. They won. We had about 300 Canadians out of two girls.
Wow.
But 300, that's a lot.
That really is.
Yeah.
What about your grandparents on your mother's side? Did you meet them?
My grandpa Wangler came over in 19. Was born to, and let me see. My mother was 9, so they came over. What the year? They came over and she was born in 1. So they must have came over in 10, right?
Yeah, 1910.
In 1910. He couldn't drive. That I remember well. He couldn't drive. He couldn't. When he came to the yard with the Model A, he would always drive so he could just drive ahead. He could never back up. That I remember from my grandpa.
Did you see him a lot then, since he wasn't a
Yeah,
great
we
driver?
used to go up. That was 7 miles from home. We used to go up with the Model A. I remember going up there. If you know what a Model A is, a 28 Model A. They're about, I don't know, they're quite a bit narrower than your cars. And there was 5 of them in the front. Many times my parents, my brother in the middle, my mother would hold one, so that was 4. And in the back, I know we had to be in there sometimes 6. That I remember.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
What would you do when you went and visited your grandparents?
Huh?
What would you do when you went to visit them? Would you just go and eat?
We usually was Christmas, Easter. She used to give us so big oranges and big apples. There was no gifts at that time. There was no such a thing as gifts.
The gift was just getting together.
But if you never get an orange or an apple, then they're pretty darn good.
I suppose. You said that your mother and your grandmother, that side of the family, did share some memories about Russia and coming over.
My mother did, yes.
Can you share with us?
She remembered coming over. She said it was so hard to leave her friends. And when they came over, and the way over, Grandpa Wangler got so sick, and they thought she saw some kids where they put them right into the water and they buried them in the ocean. And she always thought it's going to happen to her dad. So they prayed so that wouldn't happen. And she would talk about that quite a bit. And it was so long, they never thought they're going to get off of the water, like 10-day drive, all on water.
Wow. Did they ever share what it was like in the old country?
There she didn't talk too much. She just said it was so hard to leave her friends. She didn't say much. She only had third grade. But she got it over here, the education, not over there. She got the education, as far as I know.
How many kids did your grandparents on your father's side have?
My father had 7 brothers and sisters.
Do you remember the names?
Wait a minute, I got to take that back. There were 7 of them. There were 6 brothers and sisters.
Do you remember their names? Of all their brothers and sisters?
My dad's, I think I know them all. My dad's was Juliana Bumstart, then my dad, and then Annie Mary Warner. They were veterans too, you know. And then Mrs. Sean Gross, Magdalene Gross, and then Kenneth Gunda, Wolf, and then Valentine Vetter. And at one time, they lived all just about in the same yard. When the oldest one, how many were there now? 5 or 6?
There's 6 brothers and sisters, and then your dad.
I think there were only 5 the way I count. I think one of them died.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one of them. But when Juliana got married, the oldest one, my dad said he came over from Russia and he had no place to go. So they hired him and he got married to my dad's sister. They lived there. Then my dad got married and he lived there. And then my other aunt got married and she moved in with the other side for a few months, and then great grandpa got so sick she moved back. So it was 7 in one, what you say, in one farm.
And they all would stay in the same house?
7 families at one. No, there were 3 houses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they split up between the houses.
My folks lived with my grandpa, and my aunt lived with great grandpa, and my other uncle lived there. And then when one of the Uncle Valentine got married, they said there was 7 of them for a while in one.
Do you remember your great-grandfather?
No, I don't. He died in, I think he died, it was in this book too. He died in the 20s.
What were your aunts and uncles like? Did you hang out with them?
Oh yeah, my Aunt Julia, she was not a very healthy lady when she was younger. She had, but my Aunt Annie Mary Warner, we were there a lot. We grew up there, had 9 kids, and my folks had about 9 or 10. And then the Bumstocks, they moved away in 1930 when I was born. But anyway, Aunt Annie Mary, she was really good to us. Sometimes you got into trouble. She made us kneel in the corner. You had to pray. We wouldn't pray. She wouldn't let us get up till we were done praying. Then she'd let us up. But she would never spank us. My mother would spank the other kids, but not my aunt didn't.
Were you closest with Annie, with
Yeah.
your Aunt Annie?
Uh-huh.
Were you close with any of your cousins?
We had a reunion in '88, and I knew them just about all by first. I knew them all by first name. The Bumstarks, most of them are dead now, a big amount. The Warners, 5 of them are dead. I know them all, the cousins, real good. I know who they were married to. Yeah, I know.
Did you see them a lot while you were growing up?
A lot.
Like, how often?
See, you have to remember, my grandpa stayed with my folks, so they maybe wouldn't have came to us all the time, but they came to see grandpa, and the kids got to go along.
Oh, so would you see about every month? Would there be somebody?
Well, okay, I was 8 when he died. I would say after I was 5 years old, I saw a lot of my cousins 3, 4 times a year. And there was a church a half a mile from the farm that was called St. Joseph Church that was built by the Vetters, and most of them all went to church there. So you got to see them all the time.
Did you have any large family gatherings while you were growing up?
A lot.
What were those like? What would happen during the day?
Sunday afternoons, they came. Then you played ball. We played lots of ball in our years. That's about all you had to play with was balls. And the over, where you throw the ball over the roof, you call Andy over, and then you run around. I don't know if you know how that goes or not.
Go ahead and explain it to see if it's played the same way.
Well, you drew there was 4 against 4, or 6 against 6. Then they drew the ball over. Andy over, Then when the ball came over, you caught the ball, you came around. If you attacked them, then they were out. Then the other one got the ball. They drew it over. That's about all I remember about that. And where the kids still play now, but they make chalk. What do you call that?
Hopscotch.
When they in the steps they make where we used to hop. I don't know what they called it though.
Hopscotch.
Hot chops, I think.
You played that as well.
See, you have to remember, everything we talked in German, so a lot of that stuff.
What would you have called it in German? Do you remember the name?
No, that one I don't.
Okay. Did you play baseball as well?
A lot of baseball.
And did you
softball.
play baseball the same way that it's played now?
So, pretty well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was that like a Sunday event?
Sundays, a lot of ball was played in the families out in the farm, because there were so many kids, so you could have a baseball game. Yeah. And I remember using 2x4s for a bat. Now they say they're paying like $300 for a bat. The other one told me, and I said, "What? We used to use 2x4, and we hit the home runs with it. We had it marked." So how far?
Interesting. What was the ball made out of?
Huh?
What was the ball made out of? Was it?
A lot of times I remember even the ball that my aunts made. The winter months, I don't know, they put some material, they wrapped and they wrapped and they wrapped until they had the right size, and then they put a cover over it, and that was the ball. And they were pretty good. You didn't get hurt if you get hit. I mean, they hit. You can buy some of them balls. They don't go too far, you know.
They were softer. They weren't as hard a balls.
But if they made them real hard, you know, you'd be surprised how well they couldn't put them together.
I suppose. Yeah, they had to make them every so often.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Are there any other memories you have of your aunts and uncles or your cousins?
What I hated the most sometimes when they came on a Sunday and they would stay there for supper, and my folks didn't buy no stuff hardly. Very seldom that they bought stuff from town. There was everything homemade. But once in a while, my dad would bring sausage home. Once in a while, or they would bring something home, bananas, and there was not enough of them. Then I didn't get any. That bothered me.
I suppose. Tell me about your father. What was he like?
He was really real calm. He lived with my brother till he died. And we farmed together, my brother and I, and he came over every day to my wife. He had coffee over there. He was quiet. He wouldn't boss you so much. He played in church for 35 years. He was an organist. And he could write notes, and he wrote some songs even. And when I was young, I was a mean guy in church, so they took me up to the organ after church. My mother said, "You got to take him upstairs." So he took me up the next Sunday, and I started singing, and I sang for 65 years in the church. 65 years. I quit 3 years ago.
Your punishment was to sing.
That's we had at that time in church. You didn't sing. You didn't have no 4 or 5 different players. My dad played every Sunday in church, every Sunday, and he came to church half an hour early. So we had to go half an hour early, and we were not allowed to run around, so we had to go inside, and that was hard. If you guys don't believe it, praying is harder than working. That's hard work.
I suppose when you're a kid, you want to
When
play.
you're a kid, that's hard work. Yeah.
So did any of your other brothers and sisters sing?
They just about all sing. Yeah, he made them all sing. My dad could not sing very good. My dad was not a very good singer. I'm going to go back a little bit. My dad played in the church, and my mother was in the choir, and that's how they got each other. My mother said, She knew he could play well and I could sing well, so maybe we'd make a good couple. And that's how they got together. And all of us, we love to sing. When we get together, now my brothers and sisters, 20, 30 years ago, for Christmas, that's all we did. We sang all night long.
German
And
songs?
the in-law, oh yeah, German and whatever you want to hear, we sang. The in-laws, they couldn't hardly believe it. The Vedders got together, we never played cards. All we did was singing and blabbering.
That's neat.
But we sang a lot.
Do you have a favorite old song that you would sing?
No, there's some German songs that my father used to play, and every year when St. Joseph's Day is March 19th. So he would play a lot of St. Joseph songs, and I would call even every other year or sometimes every year. I'd call my brother that day, and I'll sing through the telephone. It goes like this. If you know in German a little bit, you maybe can catch it a little bit. St. Joseph, it was St. Joseph's feast day. So he would sing, Joseph, da bist an der Koren, treib dich aber, Jungfrau rein. That's how it went. Oh, you know.
And do you know what that translates into in English?
Well, it would be Joseph, da bist an der Koren. Joseph, I'm not good at that.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
Yeah, it is a song. Yes, there's English songs that has that song, just like your German songs, like Christmas songs. It's Stille Nacht. Okay, that you can pick up. Stille Nacht is the same as Silent Night.
Okay.
When we were in Rome, I'm getting myself ahead of it a little bit.
Well, let's talk about your father a little more. How did your father express emotions? If he was really happy, what would he do? Or if he was mad, what would he
My
do?
mother, my mother used to get upset with my dad because there were so many kids. You guys had no idea how many kids there were in our farm. Okay.
So your mother used to get upset with your father.
My mother get upset with my father because he wouldn't say nothing. That's how of a man he was. He would read all the time. I would call him today. He was a readaholic, and he'd smoke with the pipe. He woke us up in the morning, and in German he said, "Booba, oof." He would hit the pipe Then he'd smoke pipe all day, and then towards evening he got so full of pipe, I think, and he'd start smoking cigarettes. So he smoked himself. I shouldn't say to death, but he would have lived longer.
He smoked a lot.
He smoked too much, yeah. And there were 9 boys, and I never saw one that he ever gave us a spanking. He used to take some of the boys by the ear or by the hair. They say now that's not so good either. But if my dad was mad, we knew it. We just could sense it. So we didn't give that too far. We didn't give him a chance. Yeah.
What if you did something that really made him happy? What would he do? Or to express his love?
My dad, he was pretty well. Pretty the same. He was not this upper or downer like some people have. I would say I'm more maybe like that way too. Maybe a little bit on the mother's side, some of it. But my dad was more of when somebody came, he had time for him. He would sit down and harvest. He would talk with an agent. He would invite him in for dinner, which my mother didn't like so much sometimes. That's how of a man he was. He gave a lot to people. When he died, he got books, all kinds of magazines where he had sent money. When we just couldn't figure out why he did that, but he did. That's how he was. He was really, really a kind person that way. Yeah.
Did he help out around the house, or was he
No.
maybe out in the field?
Never helped out in the house that I can remember ever. Washing dishes or help sweep. never, when I grew up. But then he lived with my brother when they were married, and they had kids. Then he would help a little bit, but then he was much older. But and when I grew up, no, he never helped.
He obviously was a farmer.
Yeah.
What all did he grow on the farm?
He was a little different than some of the farmers. He bought a tractor in 1944. He had a different tractor with locks. But then he bought an M tractor with Robert in 44, and he was only 45 years old. And none of my brothers ever saw him drive it. So you see, he was a little different. He let the boys drive it. My mother always said he didn't like to work that heavy. He kind of liked to read, and he went to college when he was a single boy to Fargo. And they said it took with the train. He got so homesick after a month, and then he came home, and then they sent him to Bismarck. So he never really wanted to be a farmer, I think. I think he was railroaded into farming. But my uncle did mostly the heavier work. He did the book work, the driving, yeah, that way. And he always said to me, if you can, I didn't go to high school. All I had was 8th grade. He said, whatever you do, send your kids to school as much as you can. He went to college, but not to high school. My dad did. But he never went to high school. He went to college. He took it at home, high school. But he was really, really he would never, I never heard him a cuss word. Never. That he ever said a cuss word. I will cuss once in a while, but that comes from my mother's side.
So were there, out on the farm, did you have wheat and oats and...
Yeah. We had just about all kinds of animals that you can name. We had planted a lot of wheat, corn, barley, oats, rye, millet, if you know what millet is. Millet's birdseed, but they didn't use it for birdseed at that time. And then animals, they had just about everything too. They had lots and lots of work for us kids. We never ran out of work. And we never really, I can never say in the 30s that we were poor. Some families, I know they were poorer than others, but I always felt as a young kid that we were so lucky we had more than them. Should never feel it that way, but maybe we did. I remember some kids coming to school and they had clothes on from the relief. They had food that we didn't get. They had oranges and grapefruits that we didn't get at home so much. But I found out later on they got them because they had no money, and we didn't get them because we had money. But then it made you feel good that you didn't need to have that. That I remember real well.
So your dad never had to take
No.
on a New Deal job, anything like that?
No. He never. In 1936, they made some dams and they built schools. And my dad was in charge with the bookwork. He had to take it to Bismarck. There was some were on in the school, like they had a head guy for the schools, they had a head guy for the dams, they had a guy for the road, and my dad had to fill out the papers because a lot of them didn't have the school. And he got the same amount paid as them guys that they worked out in the cold, and he got paid. So you can tell he was a little bit. You would say he knew how to play the game. He didn't want to work so hard.
That works though.
Oh yeah.
What's one of your most memorable memories of your father? What are your favorite memories?
Well, as he got older, what was the memory? Playing in the church. It was one of the. We were proud because he could play. Not very many fathers could play, and he could teach music. So if you think back now, he would teach other people how to play. He never got paid, of course. There was not such a thing that he got paid. And there were all the brother-in-laws, they told me, like Bumsterk, Wolf, the Warners. They worked hard, them guys, when they lived there, when I told you earlier. And my dad did the driving. If somebody got a baby, he drove them. If somebody he had to. If somebody had to go to Bismarck in an emergency, he had a little better car. So I maybe shouldn't say that he was better off, but I think he was. I think he was more wealthier than the other ones because he had that stuff. They didn't have that. So he kind of played the game that way.
But was he willing to kind of share the wealth a little and help
Oh,
out
yes,
neighbors?
yes, really much so. There were 5 of us boys farmed. So we could use his truck anytime we wanted to. He bought a truck on 44. We could use it anytime, but he had to fill it with gas, and he said, and don't break anything. So Wendland farmed 6 miles from us, so he would take it over. John would take it over. He farmed 6, 7 miles. That was later in life, of course. And then I lived right with my dad. I used it all the time, whenever I wanted to. He never turned us down. With the tractor, with the trash machine. Then he bought a combine together. Then he bought I especially bought a lot of stuff with him, half and half. Then he sold to me half, whatever I thought was worth later on. So he shared, and with his brother-in-law, he was the same way. He bought land from his sister, Mrs. Wolf, and he put my brother-in-law on. All he got was the 4th bushel, what they call it, the bushel, so much share. And all the way like that. He was really a giver. And when he died, he had, in his will, I hope your children don't fight for all the pictures that I have. He had so many pictures. He was also a photographer, before I forget. One of them old photographer deals. So he took a lot of pictures with the old cameras. Now there's no picture in here. The other book would have pictures from church groups, and that was quite something. There's pictures in there where all of us cousins are on there too. So he also played photographer, and I have a son. He's a photographer now. He gave all the stuff to him. And when he was like 79 years old, he gave all the stuff to him. He developed the pictures. So you can see he was not really a strong farmer because he had a lot of time for other stuff.
You kids were more of the farmers, and he was the
He had 5 boys on the farm. I would say Wendland, he was a dairyman. He built with dairy. He had a lot of big family. John, he moved to town, then he worked in town yet. We moved to town when I was 55 years old, my wife and I. Our house was so old, but I still went out and farmed. I loved to farm. That's all I could do. I did a lot of heavy work. I liked to do that. So then my brother, younger brother, he never went to high school, but one of my other brothers went and to high school, and then from there on they all went to high school. Yeah.
Let's talk about your mother a little bit. What was she like?
She was a cook. She could cook. Can you imagine cooking for 13 and Grandpa?
No.
And all the cousins coming running in? She could cook so quick. She maybe didn't have the table set like they do today with the napkins on. Oh, you always had enough to eat, and a lot of good stuff. She would bake bread at least twice a week, I remember. And my mother was, you would say, the boss of the house. I mean, she would let you know when she was mad, and she would let you know she was tough. My mother was tough. My father was real the other way, but my mother, she was short. She had 3 sisters. They were taller. She was short. She was raised over there, and she always said she doesn't know why. She she was so heavy, real heavy. My mother was real heavy, and but she was really a good cook. My mother would, and she would do go out and milk, but she didn't do farm work like some other women did. My mother was not built for it. But there too, when the other ones got babies, she would cook for them, and they would go out and do the heavier work. My mother was not very strong, so
You said she cooked a lot.
a lot.
What was your favorite meal that she would
She, for when you came home from school, my wife still laughs at me. I said, I don't know, you never could make chocolate noodles like my mother. She made old chocolate noodles. She made that to put cocoa in and sugar and cream, and she rolled them and she baked them, and they were so dang good. My wife never could cook them that good, and she's a good cook too, but she could never. My mother must have had a knack for that. And bread, I mean, it was unreal. She could make bread, the big loaves. And I remember Saturday nights, my mother would lay all the clothes there for us kids, and she was good at it. She would do all the baking on Saturday. She laid it all on the bed. She had a white sheet over the blanket. Then she laid all the bread in there. And I remember when she gave us baths, we were like 5, 6 years old, in the big old tub. She would put the 3 or 4 of them in. And it was sometimes a little cold in the house. And I'd crawl underneath that blanket when the bread was laying on in the bath. It was so warm from all day laying on that bread. I remember that, and I was maybe 4 at that time. That's one thing I remember.
That's neat.
That was pretty neat. And my dad wouldn't say a word. Sometimes then my brother came and crawled underneath, and the bread loaves fell on the floor, and my mother would scream. My dad would sit there laughing. Sometimes he wouldn't even laugh. He didn't even hear it. I think he shut everything off.
So how did your mom express when she was mad at you? Did she just yell when she was upset?
Well, that way I couldn't tell you. She was in a lot of ways, and I think a lot of mothers are maybe that way, or them people that are. She got really mad, and she said, I'm going to tell Father. Wait when Dad comes home." Well, in German, there are two. Your scolding is a little bit different than in English.
Okay.
That also comes out a little different. And so she would tell Dad, but Dad wouldn't do nothing. So then she was upset with Dad because Dad wouldn't do nothing. But Dad knew he didn't see it. That's the worst thing you can do to a mother, being a mother. If you want to punish a kid, you put him in the corner, you kneel him, and you punish him now, and let him go when Dad comes home. I tell that to my daughter-in-law now. It's not a good idea to because the kid knows that. Father can't come home when he's gone all day and spank that kid.
Did that happen with you kids?
Yes, that happened with us a lot of times. Dad wouldn't do nothing. That upset my mother then.
Did you guys take
Us kid,
advantage?
and we knew that. So we didn't get a spanking, and my dad didn't do nothing. So you get by. Dad doesn't do nothing. We knew that. Dad won't do nothing. Once in a while, maybe he would say, well, boys, you can't do that. But see, that kind of works both ways. If you want to punish somebody, even a teacher, if a kid doesn't behave, give it to him at the time and let him go. You can, uh, you know.
Expect to take care of it later.
But my dad and my mother, I never really heard them fight that much. That way, I can say that he never. My mother would never, or my mother would say, well, when let's say you wanted to go away, you were 14 years old and some money. Nope, you can't go. Got to ask Dad. You went to Dad. Well, if he said no, you didn't ask the second time. But he was a real calm man. But you wouldn't. And my mother, we would back and we would pick and we'd just constantly push her. and she would give in. I learned that too from raising my family. That's the worst thing you can do. Say a word and keep it. My mother, you would beg and you would beg. Let's say you wanted a cookie. No, you got to wait till, nah, I wanted something, or I wanted this. And finally she gave in. That's bad. You started out from little things on, and as you grew up, I never know my dad telling me I can't go away. Never. I was 13 years old and I got to go just about any place where my older brothers said. But I never gave him a chance to say no. I knew when I cannot go. See, it works two ways.
You learned
I
from
never
your
gave him
older
that
brothers and
chance
sisters?
because I didn't want him to say no. My sisters did that. They would go and dress up. They would doll up and put a little in. I remember one of my sisters was about 17 years old. She was ready to go. And my dad came out, where are you going? Well, I'm going to go to the show or wherever she wants. My dad said, you never asked me. You're going to stay home tonight. And she bawled like a baby. She was so mad at my dad. She damn near ran away from home. She was upset. And then my mother said later on, well, you could have let her go. No, my dad said, if I say I'm no, you can go. And you learn that from at home. And if you raise, now my wife and I, we had 12 kids. And you know what? We never gave them a time when to come home. Never told me you got to be home at 12 o'clock. Never. She's got sisters that do it. But we kind of agreed, don't come home so late. And you know, I think we had more luck that way than the other way. And I think I learned some of that stuff from my parents, and she did too.
Those are great lessons, though.
You never want to tell a kid, you got to be home at 1 o'clock. Then they're out there doing whatever they're doing, they're driving so fast that they make home by 1 o'clock. And they might get to roll a car or something. If they come home at 2, you ask them why they came home at 2. I mean, does it really make difference if they come home at 12 or they come home at 2? As long as they behave, it really doesn't make that much difference. And I think we learned a lot of that stuff from our parents, me and her, because we were a good team like this, and that's still the number one I say today. You got if you got one child or if you got 20. If you're a team, it's not hard. But if you're not a team, it doesn't work.
Well, then how would you describe your personal relationship with your mother?
Good.
She was
yeah.
easy to talk to.
Oh yeah. My mother was a little bit different than some of the families that I hear now, that how they grew up. Okay, let's say, for instance, I would sing a song, then she would say, you did such a good job. That was so nice. Or you would do some work, you didn't spill it, or let's say, that's a lot of things, and she would also praise you. She would always kind of give you a lift. My mother did. Dad didn't say nothing, but my mother did. In other words, what she did, she would give you a hug. And I talk with my friends now. They say they never can remember when they got a hug from their dad or their ma. Where we cannot say that from my mother. Yeah, she was more. You would say what they do today. You can laugh too much too, I think, but that's how she was. Yeah.
What were her jobs on the farmstead then? What did she take care of?
She pretty well took care of all the clothes washing and all the baking and cooking. As far as bookwork or outside work, she had very little to say. When my dad bought land, he bought a tractor, and like in 44, he bought a tractor and a truck, and then he built a house in 49. Well, she maybe wanted a home too, but I don't think Ma had much to say with that stuff.
Did she have a garden that she would take
Oh
care
yeah,
of?
she had a garden. Yeah, she had a garden.
And what would she plant? What would
Everything
she grow?
and everything. A lot. A lot of potatoes. Oh, we hauled potatoes. I remember picking. Uh, well, you guys wouldn't know, but the truck held 150 bushels of wheat, and we hauled 4 truckloads of potatoes to Napoleon to the train car. So we had always work. My dad always had work. There was something in him that he knew how to. You had to work all the time. He wouldn't let you go by without. I mean, it was always work. And I kind of, after I had my family, my kids tell me, well, the funniest thing is they can't figure out how you all find the work. So it kind of works through the way you were raised, I think, a little bit.
Can you share a favorite memory of your mother?
Uh, she read a lot of Bible in German, and then she would read the Bible like when Jesus spread the water and let the people walk across. In German, everything is different than in English. And as kids, oh, we loved that. Saturdays, usually she read scriptures from the Bible in German. I liked that part real much from her. In church, there was no other way. You had just didn't know anything better. I mean, anything other than you just went to church. And long. My mother would say sometimes, "Oh no, you don't have to pray quite that long." He'd pray all the litanies, the rosaries, the stations, everything in German. Then when it was all done, then he started out for all the dead people that died. My dad prayed a lot. My mother, I have to say, not as much, but she read the Bibles for us. That I remember. She read a lot of Bible. And she had no school. You got to remember that. She had no, but she could read it really well.
Would you guys talk about what she'd read? Would you
Oh yeah,
discuss the
yeah. She would
stories?
always explain that she read kind of. She must have learned that from her side. She would read, let's say, this week, just like the readings would go, and then she explained what she had read, and we liked that as kids.
Did you get to ask questions
Yeah,
about it
yeah,
too?
yeah, yeah.
That's, that is neat.
But later in life, then when my brothers grew up, the younger ones, she didn't read much no more. But she didn't feel that good. She had cancer. She died from cancer. But when I was little, she read quite a bit. Yeah. But see, you got to remember, there was no TV. There was no radios. My dad bought a radio in 1935. I was 5 years old. He bought the first radio, and the radio was as tall as I was, the cabinet. And you were only allowed to put it on so many minutes a day because there was a battery. And they were dry batteries, so that we didn't get to listen to the radio. So all the recreation you had, mother would read, or you would play, games. She would never play cards. My mother wouldn't play cards. See, some mothers now, I found that out too later in life, like my wife's mother. She loved to play cards. Now, my mother never played cards, but she did other things. So. Was a good sewer. Yeah.
Did you kids play cards then if your mother didn't?
Well, my brothers and sisters, no, they're not. Not a one really was a real good card player till we later in life. Now we play quite a bit of cards, and my brother plays quite a bit. But no, we're not card players. No, we're not.
Like some other families.
We love to sing. Now we can get together. My brothers, I don't know. We sing together so much that we had a priest. He was 80 years old. We sang him a song. How's it going in heaven? Wie geht's im Himmel zu? That's how is it going in heaven? And he broke down. To my older brother, 2 older brothers, and I, and my younger brother. Now you don't find that too many families that brothers would do that to this day yet. Even when we were little, uh, we just loved. But my mother just loved to sing, and there she praised us too all the time. and she could sing so well, soprano, and that she would always, my dad would play and said, "That's wrong to us boys. We have to." And as we got older, see, I leaded the German singers, young German singers, we call ourselves. For 20 years, I was the director, and now we sing with German senior citizen, where Paul Weller is the same group. I also lead them. So we sing all kinds of songs. Can you tell me some school songs that you remember when you were little?
It would be church songs that I learned.
There's a church in the valley by the wildwood. You know some of them?
No.
Oh, come, 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 come. You didn't hear that yet?
No, I didn't.
Okay, you sing. There's a church in the valley by the wildwood. No lost in the blaze in the deer. No spy is a dear to my childhood as the little brown church in the vale. Then you say, "Oh, come, come, come." When I come in and you go, "Come, come, come to the church." And songs like that, or "Oh, Black Joe," you know them songs? Now we sing that for the senior citizen. And they just love it. When we have senior citizen supper, I sometimes get a little bit too wild. I sometimes think maybe I'm a little bit doing it too much, but I just love to gear them old people. Oh, they have them smiles so big.
I bet. It reminds them of growing
Them
up.
older people, there's nothing better you can do than sing for them. If you don't believe it, I tell my grandkids, the best thing in school, if you know how to play any instrument or singing, that'll stay with you as long as you live.
And was all your training from your mother? All your musical
Yes,
training
my
from
mother
your
was a real good, yeah, my mother. I would say 99% of my mother. Well, my dad could play, which helped a lot. But, and that's how they met each other, because of they could play. So, at all of 13, we love to sing. When we get together, we go together, my brothers and sisters, twice a year. We go to one house, like 3 years ago, we were here. All my brothers and sisters are all alive yet, all 13, and they all come. Then we sing songs and we give out gifts. We have a prayer present for the year, and then 4th of July we get together. All of the cousins, all the kids, like 300, 400 people. That's where this. That's where you see this here. See, this is part of the parade.
Okay. Your 4th of July celebration.
Yes, a 4th of July celebration. So we all like to sing. Some not as much as I do. Some kind of a little more, you would say they didn't lead or anything like that, but they all like to sing.
Do you ever record you all singing?
Huh?
Do you ever record you singing?
We, yes, there's a lot of records that we were saying, but that's one thing I don't, I got so darn many tapes down the basement, I can't even do them in 100 years, I think.
It's so good you hang on to them, though.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Now, with your brothers and sisters, you said there's 13. Can you list them off for me, all the names of your brothers and sisters?
Oh yeah.
Would you go ahead?
And all their kids too. There's 96 grandkids. My dad had 96 grandkids. And they interviewed him when he was 80. He died at 81. And they interviewed him and they asked him how many kids he had, and he said 13. And he said that he had 96 grandkids, and they asked him all the names, and he said, "Sure, I know all the names." And then he said, "Well, what else would you know?" He said, "I can tell you all the birthdays too." Now, don't ask me. I don't know my grandkids all the birthdays. We got
That's
40.
a lot.
We got 44. He had 96, and he would always give them. They called him the gum grandpa. He would always give the kids gum. And then for 4th of July, he would always give Gregor check, a box of Gregor check, to all the grandkids and to his kids. He did. So I know all. Yeah, I know all my brothers and sisters. And what did you ask before?
Can you list them off? Can you tell me the order?
The order, my brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. In German, we knew him so fast you could say it's just a, let's say, Anna-Maria Lisbeth Johannes Ketteri August Christi Folie Adam Joseph Benjamin Tony. In German. In English, it's Wendland, Annie Mary, Elizabeth, and John. Catherine. Then myself, August. And then it's Christine. And then there's Valentine. Then there's Adam. Then there's Joe. Then there's Ben. Then there's Tony. Then there's Leo. And we're all alive yet. We have some pictures I'm going to show you later that down the basement. We got pictures where it took every year just about we take one. And we kind of laugh about it because we got to take another picture maybe when it's dead next year.
You can finish up.
Okay. Our family, we talk about death and we talk about anything. And somebody asked one time what we all talk about if we don't play cards. We said we talk about death, heaven and hell also. We have a lot of religion in our family. Yeah, we're religious people. Here.
You go ahead and start.
This picture here was in 2000. These are all my first cousins.
Just
These are
your
all
first
these are
cousins?
all my first cousins. In 2000, we had first and second. Well, they're kids.
Okay.
My first cousins, like these here. This was a family here of the Vetters, Valentine Vetters. See, different families were different. We didn't think about it. We should have dressed all the same different families. Our son, that's a photographer, he took that. And we came out of church and he marked it. Here's one standing, up here's one standing, up there and there. You had to be in with that line. And we had about 1,300 people that day, but we don't know how many are on the picture. It's a lot of them.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a lot. And I know all the parents, these kids' parents, by name, all my first cousins. But some of the kids, it's kids I don't know no more. I know them when I see them walk sometimes. But as far as family, I don't think there's much more bigger families in this whole area than the Vetters. We call ourselves the Vetterville. We get together every 4th of July since 1930. Every 4th of July. And we never go on the 2nd or the 3rd. We have it on the 4th of July. We started out with a mass. After the mass, is he going to interview now? Mm-hmm. After the mass, we have dinner, potluck dinner, and then we have games. The little kids have games with the mothers with the littler one. They play ball. The older ones might go out fishing, and some years we have all kinds of different things. We had one guy come down with my sister's husband makes well. He made a well. He told the kids, now here, where should we make the well? And about my 50 kids, let's make it right here. So he set it up, drilled down 20 feet, pump water out.
Wow.
And them kids were just saying, oh my God, there's water underneath. Things like that we do. We do something all day long. Mm-hmm. All day long, yeah. So that's this. And this is the old farm. This is where great-grandpa lived in here. Great-grandpa. Our house was back here. No, this is our house. I'm sorry. Got to repeat. This is our house. This is great-grandpa's house. Back here is another house. When I talked about houses, see here. And then they had summer kitchens, most of them too. So there's 3 houses. There were 2 families living in here, and I think 3 for a few months in here. But Grandpa and his and then 2 of them back there for a while. So there was this is a real old. My dad took that picture, and look, you can see the hills back here. Look how clear that is from here. I mean, he had to be way up in the hill.
Yeah. Do you know about when he took that picture? Like 1920s, 1930s?
That picture was taken Okay, I remember this old chicken coop yet. There was a summer kitchen, they made a chicken coop out of it. And it was built in 1916. This new part, I would say in the 20s. I'm not going to say what year because I'm not sure. It's in the 20s.
Just even approximate works.
Well, these are my boys when we had golfing.
When you go golfing?
Had golfing, yeah, a couple of years ago. Yeah, so this here
That's the farm
is
again.
the farm, the same farm. This here, okay. This house was torn down and this was built. Back here, no, I got the wrong one. I should go there. I just got to go here. I didn't realize that. This is the house we raised our family. This is taken from an airplane. This is my folks' house. That's where my brother still lives here, and my son lives here, but with a new home on there.
So that looks like it maybe was taken about the 70s.
Yeah, this was taken in the 70s. That there was taken in 2000 because the new house is on already. And this was taken. Our son, that's a photographer. He could fly airplanes. He went to aviation. Two of my boys went to aviation, and he flew the airplane. He took that picture. So I'm kind of proud because he took that picture. That my father took that picture, and this was up in the air, and that there my son. What they do, they come around, they fly around, they take it. But look at there. You notice the creek, the Beaver Creek. Look at the Beaver Creek over there. It's taken just about in the same
angle. Yeah, it is. It's
this is the old house. See, that's why I know it's not the same picture. That's the new house.
Okay.
See, here's the new house. But when they flew, look at this barn. Look at them barns. You would think
same angle. That's new.
And that was taken in the 70s. That was taken in the. Well, I can tell you when that was taken. That was taken when my brother-in-law died. No, that's not in the 70s. That was in the 80s already.
Okay.
In the 80s, yeah.
Okay.
But that wasn't in the 20s, and this was in 2000.
That's great to see.
So this much for the pictures. This here is when we were in Rome. That was one of our biggest, I would say, events we ever had, my wife and I. Our son, Austin, this one here, he was over there studying for a priest. So we went to Rome.
John Paul, and you're 2 seats away from Pope John Paul.
I shook hands with him.
Because isn't that's you and your wife and your son?
Yes, yes. We walked in, all these people here are all real close to related to one of the boys. There were 28 boys. So they're all related to, to their sons or whatever. So we went upstairs where the Pope was, where the Pope lived. We walked up. And the story is twice as high as our stories are. So one story is, and it was pretty hard for Loretta to make it. She just about passed out. I think she was too nervous. But anyway, when we got there, and Austin, he's a little leader like my dad was. He loves to be the head, and he likes to lead things. You always have somebody that leads. They told me, well, your son is really a leader. He's still that way as a priest. He's kind of a. They asked, well, what do you think?
He needs to be.
So we got up there. Here they didn't put us in they didn't let us into the room. They started from the back into the chapel in here. This was so pretty. I mean, that's just unreal how nice that was. Here they put the people in what they were last, put them in. But I said to Father Austin, now we're going to get way in the back. No, Dad, he said, I got to figure it out. You're not going to be in the back. We're going to get in the front. I said, how do you know? I said, just wait. They filled up the back first. and we went in last. We went in way last. I was the last person, and then the Pope came. You can tell here. These were in. I came in last. I'm sitting here. I got right beside the Pope. Well, not beside, but. And I said, "How did you do that?" I said, "I figured it's going to be that way." You know, yeah. Well, of course, he didn't know where I am in here, but look how good we can see you if you would be here. See, we bought that picture. You had to buy it. You couldn't take a picture. I mean, so this was something really big for us that day, really big. And then also, the next day, well, somebody had to give the sermon. And I thought, I wonder who's going to give the sermon. And I always thought that's hard for a father to have a son that you would think he's smarter than you are. That was my hardest thing. When my boys left school, I thought, God, you know, you all think you know more than your kids. I don't care what parent it is. They always think you know more. But there's a time in your life where you have to say, hey, they know more than you. And that day it hit me. He had to do the preaching. And I thought, God, from all them other boys, they come from New York, New Jersey, from all over the world. And then I knew, hey, he's got to be smarter than I. That's one kind of hit me. Yeah, so I thought I'm going to share that with you.
That's really neat.
And this is, that's when we were Family of the Year, 1 year with the Family Award. This here is when Father Austin, he's the youngest, was young yet. They were all younger. On here.
Can you go through and point and tell me who is what? Like who is which person?
This is Connie. Connie, where's my Vivian? This is Vivian, she's the second oldest. This is Jane. And Karen. And then I had 4 girls, no boys. Well, I wanted a boy, but we didn't have no boys. So I was pretty proud when we had the first boy. He had birthday yesterday, by the way. Then it was Leland. He teaches in Wyoming. He's a welder teacher and machinist. That's Michael. He's the photographer. And he's in with the Boy Scouts. And he's got a sailing boat. He's got whatever you name it, he's got it. And he's a farm boy. Nope. Where's my Dan? Oh yeah, that's Daniel. He's the farm boy. He's out in the farm. And then there are 2 twins. He's a medical doctor. He's a baby doctor. He's got 9 girls. And that's Ronnie. He's a professor in computer. He went 12 years to college. He said he'd never go 12 years no more. It's too much. They can't pay him enough, he said. But he does real well. This is Greg. He's a banker. He works in the bank. Then there's Paul. He works with aviation, with the small planes, with the helicopters. He also can fly. And then comes Austin. He's a priest. For the girls, the 3 older girls didn't go to college. The other one went. She's a school teacher. And out of her down 52 years of college. Then they say you can raise a big family. And you know what? A lot of people say you can't afford it. I couldn't either, I thought. But you can. They all borrowed money from the Bank of North Dakota, and it's all paid off. I know. They told me they all paid their loan. So it can be done. Mm-hmm. And I know today, them kids that borrow the money, they at least know how to save a little bit So it's not also bad to have big families.
No, not at all.
So if somebody tells you you can't afford it, to tell them an old man told me that's not true. It's not true. Okay, here we're taking with the plane now. That one my son took. This one was flown. This is a different angle. But this is a earlier picture. What is it? Can't see very good here. I think this was earlier than that one.
Sure.
It doesn't really matter.
It actually says August 31st, 1991 on it.
91, that must be later. Okay. Is Mike on there?
No, it just says North Dakota, August 31st,
okay.
1991.
Okay. And this here, we'll take this off. I'm pretty proud of this here. This picture here we belong to the German singers. We call ourselves young German singers. We sang mostly all German songs. This group did. She played the accordion, and my brother John played the accordion. And we, as all neighbors out there, and it just so happened we're pretty well all related and blood related through the Wengler side, my mother's side also, and my father's side. There's some are not related, but most of them are.
Can you list off who you remember?
Oh yeah, I remember them, all of them. Oh yeah. This is my cousin, Conrad Blumstark. Julius Vetter, my cousin. This is Tony Wengler. Through my mother's side, we related. This is myself. I think I look the oldest. Maybe older than now, huh? That's 20 years old. This is, John Gross. You heard about John Gross? John Gross. Joe Gross. John Vetter. Casimir Wall. August Warner. Now this is my brother. August Warner is my first cousin. And his first cousin. And his first cousin. This is Tony Wengler. That's my first cousin through the mother's side. And Isidore Gross is my first cousin through my father's side. This is Julius' wife. This is Tony's wife. This is Loretta, my wife. Margaret, his wife. Marianne, Mary, and she's my first cousin. Phyllis, Warner, this is Delphine. This is my brother and his wife. And then Tony Wengler, his wife Rita. And we sang in Grand Forks. We sang when they had open house in the school in Grand Forks, in the church. We played church music. We were in the church. They let us stay in the dorms there. They had some dorms in the college. We played Dickinson. All the little towns for their anniversaries, like 75, 100 years old, we sang.
And this was about what years did you do this?
This was, we quit 5 years ago. Our group got old. In 2000, we sang the last time. And then we kind of just slowly fizzled out. They got sick. Some of them died. He died. He's real sick. My brother John is real shaky. And so anyway, we quit. And this here was about 20 years back. Would make it, 85, 86 maybe. We were up in Bismarck and we took a picture. I was really proud of that picture. We had to I'm going to just leave it here. This is my dad. If you can tell, by the way he sits there, mother's not on there. A lot of them say, how come mother wasn't on when mother was gone so long? So he wanted to take a picture. He went to the photographer. He didn't take it he wanted to go to a photographer. You can tell. He wanted a nice picture. And he had the book. And he was about my age. He was about 75 on there. Yeah. So some of the girls said, how come Dad is on and not Mother? Well, my mother died so early in life. And that there is my son, Mike. He was in the paper. It's just from a minute paper
Okay.
that they had him on there. So I cut it out and put it on there. Yeah, he's a lot like my dad was in a lot of ways. He's a lot like my dad was. He's got a lot of patience. A lot of patience. This here is well, you don't have to take that here. This here is a picture where we're going to go out this afternoon. The shrine, what we call the shrine, the bell tower. This is how it is today.
And that's on the property?
This is on the property out there, on the Vetter property, yeah.
And
that was drawn from a guy from Bismarck. He drew this, sketched it, and that's how he built it. I mean, it's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But look,
why?
Isn't it?
What is it a memorial of? What did you build it for?
When we came home from Rome, and my boys, Mike and Leland, they were over in Rome, and Paul, they were to Germany, and they saw so many shrines over there, and they thought, no, there's no shrines over here in North Dakota. So my son, that's a welding and machinist, he said, he loved bells. So he thought we should have a bell tower. The one that's a photographer said, I love shrines. So we ordered that from Italy. This was ordered from Italy. It took a lot to get it over here. When we go out to the farm, I'll show you. And then I would say 90% of all the money was put together just from the Vetter family, from my family. Mm-hmm. My brothers and sisters. We came up with the money. There's a lot of money in here.
And because of your tradition and religion,
yeah. So we have a lot of religion, a lot of people. But that was just sketched out. But look how close they were.
Yeah, it is very close.
Anyway, then this is also, we had a bell buckle when we had our, in 1888, we had bell buckles made. When that picture was taken, when we were all together, not that picture, that was a different picture. But in 88, we sold bell buckles. That's a oil well where my son worked. And then there's a lot of other pictures. That's the church where that's where our family was raised pretty well. That church, St. Michael's Church, east of Linton.
St. Michael's east of Linton?
Yeah, that's where we raised our family and went to church. Yeah, that's a picture. So, there's so many. Okay, here's one picture that I'll show you. This picture here are all my brothers and sisters and my sister-in-law and brother-in-laws.
Oh, okay.
What I talked about. We all get together. We're all alive yet. And this picture was taken pretty long already. They're all alive yet here. Okay. She got married 25 years ago. She was a nun. She went out and she got married. We celebrated her 25th anniversary this year, and her husband died this year.
Oh, okay.
Last fall, and she's not married yet. So that's how old that picture is, 25 years.
25 years ago?
Yeah, I would say 25 years, 26 years. The other ones are old. And the son and the brother-in-laws died, 3 of them from cancer. This one, not from cancer, but he had a heart attack. He died. That's the one there. And these here, this I want to show you. These are all my first cousins. Them there are all the kids, these kids.
Okay, in the reunion picture.
These are all my first cousins. We got the gathering about every 10 years. We got together, our cousins, and we went in here to Linton in the hall, and they were all alive yet. And would you believe That year, I think the next year, he died and she died. They died. One went to the bomb source real quick. But they're all on here. All the veterans.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So that's why the veteran family is a real big family. Because they know each other so well. And now these are all my wife's sister-in-laws. There's 9 boys. I told you. There's 9 boys. Eight brothers I got. We're all alive. And our wives are all alive. But my sisters lost their husbands. All 4 of them.
Oh, wow.
And I think they didn't take care of their men as good as we did with our wives. They played redhead. Out in the 4th of July. The redhead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. But you got to realize my sisters are on there.
Oh, and your sisters. Okay,
My
so your
daughter,
wife, your
yeah,
sisters,
I said my sister-in-law, but my sisters are also on there.
Oh, okay.
Let's just notice here, yeah. So they got a lot of fun. That's on the 4th of July.
That's fun.
And they have a lot of fun with when they get together. My brother and I, we farmed together. My brother and I, we farmed together.
Which brother is this?
Ben.
Okay.
And this is my son, and that's his son. They had an article in the farm magazine, how 2 brothers can farm together and how you can save money. And they interviewed me, and I told them I know I have at least $100,000 more because I farmed with him. And he didn't know that they interviewed me, and they interviewed him. And they asked him how much money he thinks he saved by farming with his brother. And he said 100,000 plus. So take a little bit and swallow a little bit. Sometimes will pay off. So we both thought we made 100,000. We didn't have to work for that, did we?
No.
So I'm sure we were pretty close.
Yeah.
We still get together. I'll show you the farm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll show you the farm this afternoon. So, farming together was really important for us guys. This was when our 50th wedding anniversary. We had a big anniversary. We had cards also that our son made, that he's a photographer, and the invitations with the picture. And our families were all here from both sides, all our children. We had about 450 people, friends and relatives invited. That was 3 years ago. That's something you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. That's neat.
That's
So on the left here, that would be. Oh, that works perfect. On the left, who would?
You want to know the name?
Yeah, if you tell me who this girl. Yeah. Which one is this one?
She's the oldest.
And this is Connie, you said.
That's
right?
Connie.
Okay, and then we come
Connie.
over to.
Vivian.
Let's see if I. Okay. And then we go up to.
Let's go back to Connie.
Okay.
Connie's the oldest one. She's 52 years old. This is Vivian. She's 51 years old. This is Jane. She's 50 years old. This is Karen. She's 49 years old. These 3 here, these are not even a year apart. So these 4 girls were within 3 years, 3.5 years. And Connie, because we tell her she's spoiled, she was 13 years old when we had 12 children.
You had all your kids within 12 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, she was 13 years old when we had 12 kids.
Oh, okay.
But there's a set of twins.
Oh, okay.
But still.
Yeah, that's a lot.
There's not very many families haven't got them close. So she was babysitting from the day she gave her a bath when she was about a month old. We came in from milk and she gave her a bath with ice cold water. and she's still giving baths. She's a babysitter. That's what she does.
Oh,
for
okay.
work. The other girls, I'm not going to tell you. They all do different kind of work. This is Leland. I told you in there. And that's Mike. That's Daniel. Richard. Ronnie. Greg. Paul. And us, Father Austin.
Okay.
But isn't it fun?
Yeah, you can go ahead and talk about them. I'm just going to kind of zoom in on their pictures again.
Huh?
But yeah, you can go ahead and talk about them. Tell me about your kids.
Tell about the kids.
Yeah, tell me some stories about
Okay.
your kids on raising them on the farm.
She's right now she works with a car dealer with the she's a secretary for the where they sell Cadillacs, Buick. She's in the farm, north of Napoleon. Should go back a little bit. She had cancer 2 years ago. A real bad cancer. But she's doing okay. It's real good. She's all right. She had cancer last year. She's still taking treatment today. She's a school teacher. She lives in Fargo.
Okay.
But she doesn't teach school no more. Her husband makes so much money, I think she doesn't have to. He's 27 years teaching in Wyoming, welding a machinist. He's the head of the college with that, and he still does work pretty good. He's a photographer, like I told you earlier. He's a farm boy. He's Richard. He's got 9 girls. I'll show you the girls when we come upstairs. And he's the twin. They got no children. They can't have no children, his wife. And he has 5. He works in the bank. He's the money man. That's Paul. He just got married last year. That's Father Austin.